Hi, I am Mosimiloluwa Koye-Ladele, the founder of Academic and Post-Tertiary Excellence, and it is good to have you on this online course, The Employable Graduates. In this module, we'll be talking about, does my class of grade really matter? Just like we did in the first module where we talked about the scam called school, it is your decision to make. So I'm going to provide you with the facts, why it matters, when it doesn't matter much, and I will leave you to make the decision. So let's jump right in. Why it matters. Your class of grade tells me about you before I meet you. So when I see a CV and then I see graduating class of grade, first class or second class upper, it gives me an insight into your capabilities before I meet you. Now, it doesn't mean that it reinforces that thought or that knowledge, but it gives me a first-time overview. I'm just like, okay, you graduated with the first class from Covenant University. Okay, graduated with the first class from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. That's okay. So it talks about you before you talk. That's exactly how I'll put it. Your class of grade talks about you before you talk. So it matters because you want something giving a positive impression of you before you actually get there. The second one is, see, a first class or second class upper tells me that you are hardworking and diligent. Honestly, when I see that you finished with a second class upper from Obafemi Awolowo University, I imagine that you constantly had good grades and you were able to keep that up from your first year to your final year. So it gives me a kind of impression that if I hired you, you would actually keep up consistently excellent results, that you would be an effective performer, if you get what I mean. So I would say that number one, it tells me about who you are. Number two, it tells me you're hardworking. Good grades tell me you're hardworking and diligent. Another thing it tells me is that you're driven. Because sometimes to maintain a certain level of performance needs some sort of inner drive. And every employer wants to employ somebody who is driven, not somebody you always have to motivate, not somebody you have to call, are you coming to work today? Not somebody you have to call, why did you not come to work today? And all of those things. Nobody has time to baby anything. And let me address this issue now. I know that my generation of young people, a lot of millennials, and maybe some people in the generation above us, we feel really entitled. So we feel like our employers owe us something. And this was actually a mindset that I shared after university. I remember when I was working in a place when I was 7, I just felt like you people should understand that I've spent the last 6 years of my life studying, so you can't expect me to just be stressed. I need to rest to an extent while I'm doing my national service. And I think that mindset is actually wrong because nobody owes you anything. So nobody's ready to baby you. Employers are looking for people that are driven, people that are self-motivated, people that are self-starters, people that can think on their own. So when I see a first class or a strong 2-1, what that tells me is that this person is driven. Now, I'll go into what I see when I see a third class or a second class lower. When I see a third class, I imagine something must have happened to these candidates when they were in tertiary institution. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. When I see a 2-2, I just think something must have gone wrong. And this actually happened to me. In case you do not know, or you did not know, I actually finished from Obafemi Awolowo University with a second class lower. And I remember when I did an interview, there was a particular interview I did. My employers called me. They said, this was a fantastic interview. The comments we have here says that you're a strong candidate. You demonstrated strong leadership skills and competence. So what was responsible for your low grades in school? Imagine if I had graduated with the first class, they probably would have felt, well, the strong performance we saw in the interview is the same as the class of grade, so she's good to go. But they had to call me to ask me. So when I see a third class or a second class lower, it tells me that something must have gone wrong, something must have happened. Either the person did not perform as much as they could, or maybe there was an health issue, there was a family issue, there was a major distraction, something happened. And usually before they give you a chance, especially if you're applying to a multinational, you need to demonstrate, you need to prove to them that, yes, I could have graduated with a second class lower, I could have made a third class, but I am not that class of grade, which is what I had to tell my employers. When they asked me what was responsible for your class of grade, in your graduating class of grade, I, at that point, if I'm being totally honest with you, could not say anything. So I said personal reasons. And then they were like, okay, we will get back to you and let you know if we are making the decision to hire you. And for a while, I was just thinking, what should I do? Has this opportunity gone? This is an opportunity that I want with the whole of my heart. So what I did was I sent them an email and I explained to them that, see, these are the reasons why I graduated with a second class lower. And while I know that I cannot get it off that class of grade, this is what I'm doing to ensure that I still do well. So for my past 2 semesters, I have constantly had a 4.67 and a 4.79, which are in the first class bracket, so to speak, for those semesters. And as much as I know that I cannot make up for the time, in me you would find a combination of tenacity, resilience, drive, intellectual curiosity, a taste for excellence that cannot be qualified with a class of grade. That was the email I sent to them, and I'm not surprised that some days after. Don't let me say I'm not surprised, because actually I was hopeful. So that's what I would say. I was hopeful they would get back to me. I was hopeful that they would see that I am not a number. I am not a number. I am not my graduating class of grade. So in case you're watching this and you're on a 3rd class or you're in a second lower, I want you to know that you are not your class of grade. Of course, things could have happened. It could be an health issue. It could be a major distraction. It could just be some sort of you were just not focused, or you thought you were studying the wrong course, but you are not that class of grade. It doesn't have to determine the direction that your future and your life will take. So that's very important for you to note. The next point we are going to be talking about is when it matters. When does a first class matter? A first class gives me some level of assurance of an interview opportunity. So a first class is, in a way, and I'm not saying that for all opportunities, because I know that we live in African countries and the dynamics are just so different. You have a lot of first class that are not even called to interviews, but it gives some level of assurance, especially when you've added value to yourself on other fronts. It gives you some level of assurance of an interview opportunity, i.e. you have a foot in the door in a way. So at least you have the opportunity to say more things that make you that give you a higher chance of being hired. And then the second time when it matters is for screening out. So I remember I applied to a particular multinational in Nigeria then, and there was a field there, class of grade. And of course, you don't lie about your class of grade. In case anybody is watching this and is planning to be not truthful about that, don't do that. When they ask you what your class of grade is, just be upfront about it. So there was a field there, class of grade, and I chose it second lower. And I did not hear from the organization. And what I understood happened was that there was a filter. When they collected the applications from different people, they just did a filter, and people that were not first class or 2-1, they filtered them off. So they did not get to see my CV and all of that. And the truth is, a lot goes into recruiting that you cannot go into CVs one after the other. A lot of money goes into hiring, especially for companies that are particular about hiring the right people. So if you don't want to be screened out, I think that it's good if you have a good class of grade. But as I established earlier, it doesn't mean everything. Another thing I want to address before we move into the next point on when it doesn't matter too much is that I know of a friend of mine. She was telling me that she was facing this panel. She had done so well, in all the stages of the interviews, and she was at the final stage. And then they asked her, why did you graduate to the second lower? And then she started crying. Don't do that. Now, I'm not saying that don't show emotion, because I believe that emotions are human reactions to events. It's just like saying that, throw something up and don't expect it to come down. Gravitation will act on it. So I am up for people, showing that they are human in contexts where they should, but I strongly advise that you get over your class of grade so much that when you get to an interview and they ask you what your class of grade is, you can confidently you can confidently say it. Oh, I graduated with a 3rd class. That's it. And we know a number of people that are doing well in the society. If this is very correct. The owner of Ovation magazine graduated with a 3rd class. Wale Soyinka graduated with a 3rd class. So you know that greatness is not measured by a class of grade. So I would say that get over it, because she had not gotten over it. So when they saw her cry, what the employers were thinking was, does this girl have the capacity to handle stress? Does she have the capacity to fight? because she just broke down in tears and she did not get the job because they were like, oh, we're really sorry, but we will not be giving you this job. I remember an interview I went for, and they asked me there, did you graduate? In fact, the assumption was that I graduated with a first class. Till I was asked, did you graduate with a first class? And I said no. The man was shocked. I said no, I graduated with a second class lower, and he was like, wow. So you have to be confident about it that yes, this is it, but that is not who I am. A friend of mine, before I graduated, we were talking, and she was telling me that, so do you know that you are not even a second class lower? And it was because I made up my mind that even if I was going to graduate with a third class or a second class lower, it was going to be a distant memory. It was not going to determine my realities. I was going to apply and work in places that people that graduate with first class work, if you get what I mean. So you need to get over it. Don't start showing emotion in front of prospective employers that you're still pained about your class of grade. It is not who you are, and it doesn't determine your future. So when it doesn't matter much, when your class of grade doesn't matter much, is when you've added a lot of value to yourself and you have demonstrated that academics might have gone bad, but you still carry excellence. And that was my story. I was able to demonstrate, I will still talk about it later. I was able to demonstrate that I added a lot of value to myself, that I was going to be an indispensable employee in any organization, that I was very smart, that my problem solving ability is above board. And it is not just the truth I tell my employers, it's actually a truth that I've internalized in my mind so much that it has become a reality. I applaud myself when nobody is watching. I actually tell myself, Simi, you are such a problem solver, because that is me. I look for solutions. I no excuses. If there's a bump on the way, the next thing I'm thinking of is either how do we go through this bump or how do we find a way around it. And I've proven to myself as a person that I solve problems. So it was not a problem for me proving to a prospective employer that, see, I think in terms of solutions, and if you hire me, I'm going to solve the problems that you might face or you may face in the future in your organization. So your class of grade doesn't matter when you have added value to yourself. Recapping on everything I've talked about why your class of grades matters. It tells me about you before you get a chance to speak. I've talked about what a first class and second class upper tells me about you. It says that you are consistent. It says you are diligent. It says that you work hard. And I've talked about what a third class and second class says. It says there was something that happened. It says that there's an additional story to this. I've talked about when your class of grade matters, when a first class matters, when they are screening and some interviewers just screen off. If you don't meet it, then that's it. And when it doesn't matter much, when your first class, in fact, I should add to it that your first class doesn't matter much if you have not added any value to yourself. If everything you have just done is you have read through school, you have crammed through school, or you just only know the technical bits, it won't matter so much. So even if you're a first class graduate, congratulations, you have a foot in the door, but you still have a work to do to prove that you deserve that opportunity. You get what I mean? So I think that it is very, very essential for you to understand that value is important. We will talk about how to gain value, but I hope I've been able to speak to your mind to let you know that a class of grade is a number. It's an important number, but your life does not have to be determined by what it is. Thank you very much for watching this. This leads right into the next topic. Very important you follow these things sequentially so that you can get the juice out of it and your mind can be transformed. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, thinking big. I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.